Hello everybody and welcome to the WildWeiler Weekly Wrap. As always, I am WildWeiler. I think I've been battling a bit of nostalgia lately, and maybe battling isn't the correct term because I really have been enjoying myself, so I'm not sure I should describe it as a battle. This week's trip down games of the past, I fell back in love with The Sims, specifically The Sims 4. And I've been having a wonderful time. I think one of the things I love about The Sims, which I have played off and on since I managed to get a hold of a copy of the very first game, which I wasn't allowed to have because of that infamous lesbian kiss at E3 1999. My favorite game in the series is probably to this day the second Sims game. It's amazing. Its expansion packs are amazing. Open for Business in particular holds a very special place in my heart. But that's also because when I was old enough to play The Sims 2, I got into modding games and I found my first satyr/fawn mod, and that really kicked whatever Chronicles of Narnia put into my soul that finds men with animalistic characteristics enticing, let's say. I just kicked that just straight into frickin' overdrive. So, as an adult, I'm a fan of The Sims 4 because not only can I mod in fawns whenever I want to, but now furries, and EA doesn't seem to be directly fighting the community on being able to insert literally whatever you want into the game, putting your desires onto it, and in many ways, they're kind of helping that out. Have you seen the options in the character creator lately for things like sex and gender? It's amazing. Like, it's amazing how much options EA is putting into the game and then allowing modders to sort of take that and then do even more things. And we live in a weird harmony between EA and the modding community. And this is frankly something you all over at Final Fantasy XIV, because I know everybody over at Final Fantasy XIV watches this vlog, you know. I'm sure of that. You guys need to learn that lesson. Don't fight your modders. I mean, it's fine. Let people make hot pants. It's fine. Anyways, I've been playing virtual dolls and having some fun. And the thing I love most is I can just simply make my sim good at something by practicing it for hours and hours and honing their skill and making them do something over and over again. And then they get good at it, and then I feel good that they're now good at something. And then I got sad because, well, I have a hard time doing that. So I thought about that, and now I'm getting an art degree. That's right, friends, you heard me. This dog is learning new tricks. I'm going to college. For the third time. Well, I guess second time. Third time. I will have attended 3 colleges, so I guess third time. Anyways, yeah, I've been thinking a lot about my creative pursuits and how they relate to my career and how I do things. And I realize I constantly pursue creative activities. And for a list, I will give you things that I've talked about on this vlog alone. I've tried 3D modeling, stained glass, photography, landscaping, model painting, writing, game development, woodwork, boat building, and that's honestly just the things that have come up in this vlog. In fact, this vlog is really the only creative pursuit that I've managed to do in a way that has lasted A, multiple years, and B, kind of continuously. I'll do and come back to other pursuits. The other big one tends to be writing. In fact, this script is written and it's about a 1,500 word script, which does make it like half the length of an average podcast episode. I've noticed they tend to max out around 3,000 words. I do this and I write, and that's about that because I write this. For everything else, I struggle to stick with it. I really do. So I thought about my struggle and why I struggle and why I'm kind of like unhappy and have a hard time completing things. And I realized I really need experts and professionals and teachers and mentors to check in on me when I'm doing something. I excelled pretty good at college, not in the grades category, but in the acquiring knowledge category, which is the important bit. I wasn't too bad at grades, but I have a weird temperament when it comes to acquiring knowledge, and if I feel I know something, it bums me out to try to have to prove it to people. But that's besides the point. That's a me problem. So, yeah, I decided to apply for a community college, and I'm excited because I feel like I will get the coaching that I want, and I will overcome my problems with self-learning. It's really cool. Like I said, I'm excited, and I'm excited because last time I went to college, it was because I felt obligated to. Like I needed to. Like I needed to go to college to get a job. So the end result was getting a job. And boy, did I power game getting a job, because I was always told you got to go to college and get a job. And I did that. And I thought maybe a sense of fulfillment or happiness or anything would show up after I worked a job for long enough. And as it turns out, those don't just appear if you're not doing something you're not particularly passionate about. So while I am going to continue to work full-time, I am going to continue to make this vlog. I am also going to go to college to get a 2-year degree in art to see if maybe that's the direction I would like to pursue more seriously. There will be some effect to this vlog in that there might be weeks where it's like, ooh, I can't do that. Or we might have to drop, our 3-topic format. But that's okay, because on the other hand, we're all gonna learn a lot more about art, because the best part about learning is I will have a lot of stuff to talk about, because I'm gonna find cool stuff all over the place. So I am here and I am excited for the challenge. Over the past several weeks, I have been in the background playing a game called The Sinking City. It's a little bit older now, but it goes for sale on Steam, like, all the time, and is really cheap when you can catch it on sale. And I was like, yeah, I like it. I haven't played any of the other games by WildWeiler, which they primarily do Sherlock Holmes adventure and Sherlock Holmes sort of investigation mystery games, but I like Eldritch Horror. It's something I've been talking to my friends about recently. Existential horror or dread doesn't compel me in the way Eldritch Horror and dread does. So when I first booted into the game, I knew a lot about how it was received critically when it came out. I knew the combat was not good, and in fact bad, and that the controls are at best unpolished. So I knew to expect that, and I did set my expectations accordingly. If I get a good enough heads up, there's nothing that actually prevents a game from excelling if you know its weaknesses ahead of time, because controls are important in a game, and combat, if it's a core feature, which we'll find out for The Sinking City, unfortunately it is, it doesn't necessarily mean the game is bad. There's a number of games that have really janky things that stick with us for forever, and that's okay because they're great. So I knew how the combat was bad in particular, and the problem is combat is weirdly central to The Sinking City, and I mean weirdly central. It is impossible to avoid. Nearly all steps of a progress in an investigation is go to a location and kill all the Cthulhu monsters there. So you have to do that, and there is just no way around it. The high-level plot of The Sinking City is you are a private eye who is drawn to a spooky city that hides in the fog off the map in the Gilded Era, my favorite era for clothing and architecture, by the way. Once you get there, you find there is a pretty major Cthulhuing happening. Like, on the scale of Cthulhu, it's full-on apparition time. So that's probably not good for anybody. And you need to do some investigations to figure out what the heck is going on. At the start of the game, despite the controller roughness, I felt that the game presented me with a lot of novel and engaging both ideas and gameplay. It was good. It was inventive. I loved it. I think my first session playing the game was one of those all-night Friday playing for like 6 hours the moment I got off work, the moment I went to bed sort of situations. And it has been a long time since a game pulled me in like that. And that was really cool. That was really cool. Since you take the role of a PI, you're deeply involved in the lives of all the NPCs you meet, and you very quickly notice that when an NPC is lying to you, there's like 2 types of NPCs in this game. One, murderous Cthulhu cultists. Those guys are always lying to you, and they're always trying to murder you. Number 2, gay men. Like, specifically, which I felt was interesting because for the time, there's a lot of anti-homosexuality laws. It's a big problem for gay people and lesbians and everybody in the LGBTQ plus community. But crucially, it gives NPCs a reason to lie and hide information from you when, like, you're investigating a murder, because that person's already dead and they in many ways risk death talking to you if you find out their secret. And you find out their secret because you're a really good PI. And you, the player, are given the choice. You can either say something judgy and stupid when you talk to them. I have not found a quest where you can report anybody to the authorities, so that is good. So you can just choose to be a dick if you're a dick. Or number 2, you can assure people that you're investigating a murder. You are not here to get into their personal life, nor do you care to judge them. And I felt that was refreshing and honestly some of the best type of queer representation I have seen in a video game in a while, because a weird number of the side stories in this game feature around somebody who needs a PI, but they're in a same-sex relationship and they don't know what to do. You know, so they half tell you the truth about what they need. And then in the middle of the investigation, you're like, oh, you're gay. Oh, you're gay. That's what's going on. Like, that's why you say these things and you do these things and you lied to me at the setup, because you were hoping I wouldn't figure this out, and you were hoping that with just enough information, you would get the answer you needed without your whole life being exposed. And I just like that. It was interesting. It was real. It was real. That's it. It was real. One of the most omnipresent challenges in the Sinking City is figuring out where to go. The game doesn't point you directly so much as it gives you street names and building descriptions, and you have to open up your map and literally try to figure out where it is you're supposed to go. And I really liked that. I thought that was great. I wish their fast travel system was a little bit better, because figuring out where you're supposed to go on the map and then slogging your way there gets tiring when you pick up a side quest that has a dozen locations. You're like, oh my gosh. So you open the map and you just try to figure out where everything is, and then you try to map your walking route through the city. But that gets old a little fast. For the normal story quests where there's only maybe 3 or 4 locations and you go to them very linearly because a clue at one leads you to the next, it's a really enjoying experience, because you're like, go to location, kill some bad guys, find some clues, open up your map, figure out where you're going next. It builds a loop, and it builds a loop that keeps you engaged doing the different facets of the game, and I really, really liked that. The problem is it's a sort of slow burn on top of everything, and that isn't the best because the fast travel system is rough and tough, and so if you need to backtrack, you're like, oh, I have to walk all the way back there. The thing I really love about the game, though, is how it builds dread. I love dread in fiction. You know how a lot of people like horror movies or play horror games because they like fear, they like scares, they like shock and awe? That's me, but for dread. I am a huge fan of the slow burn with the weight of inevitability and inescapability just crushing you. It's something I do find interesting. It's not as fast-paced as, say, classic horror, but The Sinking City delivers on the feeling of dread for a time, unfortunately. The game builds dread mostly in its environment, exploration, sound, light. All build your sense of doom and impending badness, and it's amazing. The city really is sinking, and you need to figure out what is going on and solve the mystery, because it's up to you to either fix the issue or, if we're honest, in all likelihood, name that which will be your demise, because that's the type of game it feels like. I doubt at the end of the game we solve the problem so much as we now know the face of our killer, kind of thing. And that's the cool thing about the way it builds dread, because that feels inevitable. And even if by some stroke of luck everything does turn out fine, the feeling that it turned out fine because we fought inevitability and won would be so rewarding that it wouldn't feel like you were cheated out of the like Cthulhu monster actually killing everybody. Unfortunately, here comes the turn. The sinking city gets boring. That's the problem. It just gets boring. The collecting clues becomes repetitive in a way that just feels bad, since traveling, as I mentioned, can be a little bit of a slog. You always end up obsessively searching for every clue so you don't have to backtrack. And that means you stare at walls a lot and look for things a lot, but in a way where the monsters now become an annoyance rather than a challenge. Not because they're not any easier, but because if I get killed by a monster, I reload from my last save point, no problem. If I miss a clue, I lose time in that I have to walk all the way back here, and that is a problem. So, there is issues there. This, of course, wouldn't be a problem if the game wasn't so freaking long. The issue being is I've simply had to stop because the amount of work I'm putting into the game is not worth what I'm getting out of it now that I'm a lot into it. Unfortunately, I just burnt myself out. I did too many side quests. That's my advice for anybody looking to get into it is don't do any of the like letter quests or things like that. The ones where you have to go to like 10 different locations, that will burn you out. Just stick to the main story and side quests given you by NPCs that aren't in letters. Because, oh boy, the letter side quests just absolutely killed me. And that's really because, like I said, the dread building comes from the environment. The city slowly sinking into the ocean, fog, sound, light, glimpses of monsters in the corner of your eye. You can only build that so long before something has to happen. And if you spend all your time doing side quests, you're building a lot of dread without a lot of payoff, and then the thing I like felt tedious, and that killed the game for me. I haven't finished the sinking city. The lesson here being, I suppose, it's okay to stop playing a game when you've finished enjoying it. I'm going to rate the sinking city, and I am going to give it a 5 out of 10. And it could have been as high, I think, as an 8 out of 10. It really could have been. It's got a lot of really good, really novel things. But for me, it's a 5 out of 10. I got my money's out of it. Do not get me wrong. I would recommend it if, like me, you like the genre, but know that it is rough and it is hard to complete. And if you complete it, good for you. I'm off to, the wiki to read the rest of the plot synopsis because I won't be going back, and that does sadden me a little bit, but I do look forward to playing the next game because they have already announced the Sinking City 2. That does it for this week, everybody. I am going to stream High Fleet on Thursday night, so if you're around, please tune into that around 6 p.m. Pacific time, but the start and stop times on this channel are wishy-washy by about a half an hour, so be prepared for that. I think High Fleet in particular is a very unique and engaging game that I would not want to do a Let's Play series of, and I'm not sure that it's fun for a lot of people to play particularly, but it reminds me of those N64 era games that you would watch your friend play, and they'd be like, do you want to turn? And you're like, nope, I do not want to play this game, but I love watching you play. And I think High Fleet is going to be that, because it's got a lot of fun technically stuff that is semi-impenetrable, and once you get through it, it becomes really fun. Also, my next pre-recorded Let's Play series is coming up. I played through the reality-bending game Superliminal, and that will be coming up one episode every Saturday for Superliminal Saturdays, and that's going to run for several weeks. Not as long as some of our other ones, because it's a nice short little game, but we'll get some entertainment in there, so look forward to that. There will be no weekly wrap next week. I am once again going to a cabin. Although last time I went to a cabin at a lake, this time I'm going to a cabin in the woods. Or desert? I'm in North America, and it's a North American desert, and it's like technically like an oasis in a North American desert, so there's a lot of pine trees and sagebrush. And it is nothing like what you're envisioning right now, so needless to say, I'm going to a desert cabin oasis that's also a forest, because North America. I will see you in 2 weeks. Thanks for watching, and as always, have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.